Hey, good morning, guys. Okay, let me make sure I have this up and going. All right, we're notifying viewers that you're live. Okay, good. There we go. Hey, good morning, anybody that's on here. I hope that you guys are having a beautiful weekend, an amazing Saturday. Seems like the day just started. And today I'm going to be talking a lot about growing up that inner child. I posted a video probably, I guess, a week ago, 5 to 7 days ago. And I had a lot of people asking questions about how to grow up that inner child, because a lot of times we start to get stuck. We feel stuck, even when we're not exactly stuck. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, and just getting you guys from a space of feeling stuck, feeling like nobody cares, feeling like you can't get anywhere in life. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about how to grow up that inner child. So the video basically was talking about when you do the work to get the trauma out. Let's say that you go to an acupuncturist, or you go to do certain types of stretches to open up your the centers of trauma that we hold the trauma in our body, like in our hips and in our thighs, in our organs. When you have times where you release that trauma, you also have to know that now you have to go forward and do the work so that you don't re-traumatize yourself. So we're going to talk about that today, because re-traumatization is very real. How do you re-traumatize yourself? Okay, let's say you come to me and you have a hypnotherapy session, or you go to a therapist and you start talking about your childhood, and you talk about the things that you went through, and you have a breakthrough, you have a release, you start to feel better. It's very cathartic, and life seems to be great. You're doing phenomenal. You're growing in work, you're growing in your relationships, but then something occurs and you start to feel little by little depressed again. You start to feel heavy again. You start to feel as though you're going back into being re-traumatized. The reason for that is because I want you to imagine it like a wound. Let's say you have a big gaping wound right here in the center of your chest, and you go to the doctor and they come in and that wound has been infected, it's festered, and they come in and they scoop it all out and they clean it all out. But now you have not fully healed that wound. So you still have the gaping wound in your chest. Now, over time, the wound starts to heal itself. You've removed the impediment from your healing. You've removed the stuff that was causing you to feel down, but the wound is still there. And it takes time to heal it, right? So the wound's still there, it takes time to heal it, but it starts to get infected again. It starts to hurt again. You start to feel like you're sliding backwards into the place that you just left. Why is that? It's because you have not taken time to put the salve in there, to put the right things in there so that that wound can now fill back in and become as though it never was there. So how do you do that is the question. How do you do that? How do you get your place from being so wounded, so hurting, so broken, to where you may press on it and feel a little tender, but it's no longer really hurting? What you have to do is you have to go into your subconscious, and you have to now grow that part of you up, feeling as though it was never wounded at all. That's what I do, but you can do that at home. And I want to teach you guys how to do that kind of thing. So if you, for instance, had a wound where you had a parent who was an alcoholic or a drug addict or abusive in some form, and that started when you were 5 years old, you at 5 years old received this wound and you're stuck there. You grow up in your life and you grow up being 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to whatever age you are now. But that 5-year-old you is still stuck in that point. Now, you've gone to the therapist, you've gone to a hypnotherapist, you've gone to an acupuncturist, you've gone to do breath work, EMT, EMDR, and you just know that you're doing fine, but then something triggers you. And it's almost as though you snap back to that point at 5 years old where you felt helpless, where you felt as though nobody was going to protect you, nobody was going to save you, nobody would be there. So you're still living at this 25, 30, 40-year-old age and up, but there's a part of you that is here that every time you get triggered, every time you feel abandoned, every time you feel as though you're going to lose someone or something you love, when you start to feel as though you just can't do it, you feel hopeless and helpless, it snaps you back here. Now we got to heal that. So before I get started, you guys, if you're on here, share this with friends. Join it, share it, comment. Let me know that you're here. I want to interact with you guys. I want you guys to ask me questions. I want to know that you're listening, and I want to know that you're understanding as well. So we're at this place where we're going to go back into the example. 5 years old, 6 years old, you have a trauma that occurs, and that trauma that occurred causes you every time you get triggered by something to snap back there. So it's like you're doing all this work, doing all this therapy, and you don't know why you're not getting where you want to be. You've improved incrementally, just little bit by little bit. And you're wondering why you're getting pulled back here. It's because a lot of times that gaping wound is still there. The therapist helps you talk about it. They scrape it out for you. They help you get a better understanding of why the wound is there. But knowing why the wound is there does not mean that the wound is automatically healed. Knowing why the wound is there does not mean that the wound is going to fill itself in. We have to do more work in order for that to happen. And you have to be committed to doing the work. You are a spirit being with a soul and a body, living in a body. So you have to go to the issue in a more of a 3 or 4-fold way. You have to attack the issue or help to heal the issue, not just in your mind, but also in your body and your spirit. The body keeps the score. And there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. But the body keeps the score. If you received wounding, traumas when you were younger and it was not immediately dealt with, well, those emotions and those feelings begin to store themselves in your muscles, in your bones, in your organs. That's why you see people with issues, with issues of liver disease and liver failure. It's not just because they were drinking. They're drinking to hide the problem or to cover something over. It's not just because it runs in their family. Chances are it runs in their family because of a trauma that happened with their grandparents. This stuff actually carries on in our DNA. A lot of times we carry the hurts and the wounds of our forefathers, plus our own hurts and wounds. Isn't that crazy? We're carrying these wounds and these pains from our mothers, our fathers, our grandparents, and then we're also carrying our own. And it piles up and it becomes something that can be more difficult to heal because now we've got all these compounding traumas. We've got all these compounding issues and these things that are hurting us. And when that happens, it becomes a little more difficult, but it's not impossible to heal. So how do we heal it? What do we do? All right, let's talk about it. So I'm going to wait about 2 minutes before I get into it because I don't really want to fully repeat myself, but I want to say hi to everybody who's on the live. I know that sometimes people are listening because after my last live, I had all these messages either in my inbox or in my Facebook Messenger of people who had listened, and it didn't even show me that you guys were on. So if you're on here, I want to say hello and welcome, and thank you for joining. And please interact. Feel free to interact. If you don't have a TikTok account and you can't interact, share it. Hello, Zulia Pythia. Nice to see you. So how are we going to heal those traumas? We have to be willing to commit to the work to grow our inner child up. If you received a trauma and you dealt with a trauma at 5 years old, 7 years old, 10 years old, you have to be willing to go back to that inner child, to that part of you that was hurt. Hola, Rocky Resendis. Nice to see you. You have to go back to that place where you were initially hurt, and you actually you have the authority now to go to your inner child and raise them up as though they were never hurt. Raise them up feeling protected, raise them up feeling cared for, raise them up feeling as though they were never wounded at all. And as you raise your inner child up feeling that, what ends up happening is you're able to reintegrate that child who's now no longer a child, but will still have that childlike wonder, will still have that childlike freedom. You're now able to take that inner child, raise them up to where you are now, and allow them to go forward, feeling all the feelings, all the love, all the worthiness, everything that they deserve to feel that they never got to feel when they were growing up. And it's a beautiful process, okay? I just want to tell you guys, a lot of times we're waiting for somebody to come and save us. A lot of times we're waiting for somebody to come and do the work for us. It's not going to happen. Nobody's going to save you but you. And you have the power, the ability the authority to save yourself. Okay? You're in a place in your life where you're actually, you're taking care of yourself, you're paying your bills, you're going to work, you're doing the work, and you actually have the ability now to save yourself, to save that child, that part of you that was stuck so long ago, and bring them up to where they need to be. And the question is, how do I start? Where do I start? You start by sitting with the emotions. You start by taking going low tech with it. Take a piece of paper and a pen, and you write down the issue that you've been feeling, and you write down the emotions and the feelings that you have because of that issue. The key is to get to the core beliefs. When you have all these feelings about something, let's say you got traumatized at 5, 6, 7 years old, somebody hurt you, somebody abused you, and you have these feelings of rage, anger, sadness, hurt, bitterness, and you write this stuff down on a piece of paper. You get to the beliefs about yourself, about why you have those feelings. When I think about what this person did, or when I think about how I went through this, it makes me feel sad. And then you say, what is the belief I formed about myself from that sadness? It makes me feel sad because I believe that I am unworthy. Okay, good. That's your first one. That's your first feeling, your first belief. You sit down with yourself, you tell yourself, okay, what's the next feeling? It makes me feel angry. It makes me feel angry, and it makes me believe that I deserved to be hurt, that I deserved to go through what I went through. You get those feelings, you get that list of beliefs, and once you have that, now you can begin going further into the work. Because at that point, that's when you're going to sit and you're going to talk about these feelings, these beliefs, and you're going to allow yourself to get into a relaxed state. Now, if you were in my office, this is the point where I would be taking you through the steps to go into hypnosis. But since you're going to be doing this yourself at home, you're going to sit down with those feelings and those beliefs, and you're going to get very real with yourself. You're going to sit down and you're going to go ahead and get into a relaxed state. You can lay down on the bed. You can sit against the wall. You're going to get very comfortable, and you're going to start breathing, and you're going to take in those breaths, and you're going to focus only on your breathing, because you have to stay present in the present moment for that time being in order for you to take yourself back into the past, if you will. Because once you get into that present moment where you're here now, you're not in the future, you're not in anxiety, you're not in the past in the sense that you're just reliving the issue. You're going to be talking to this part of you that is very much so here now in the present, but that never got a chance to grow up feeling what he or she needed to feel growing up. Once you get into that place, you're going to go ahead and start talking to your inner child. And it's going to look something like this. It's very simple if you're doing it at home. If you're doing it at home, this is not a one-time session like it would be with hypnotherapy. You're going to be doing this consistently. You're going to do it before the feelings rise up. You're going to do it when the feelings rise up. You're going to be sitting there with yourself. You're going to listen to your breath. You're going to place one hand on your heart. You're going to place one hand here on your solar plexus, and you're going to breathe into the feelings. You're going to look at what is making you feel. If you said, it's making me feel sad, it's making me feel angry. When I think about this trauma, when I think about this hurt, I feel frustrated. I feel sad. I feel bitter, whatever you say. And you're going to go ahead and breathe into it. And you're going to allow the emotions to start to rise up. Pay attention to where you feel it in your body. For some people, they feel it in their throat. For some people, they feel it in their head. Sometimes you feel it in your root. You start to feel the pressure build up there. Pay attention to how that pressure feels, because it's telling you something. If you're feeling that hurt and that pain and that pressure in your heart, well, that's where you're holding it. Our body keeps the score. And if you're holding all that emotion and all that pain and all that pressure in your body, imagine how your organs feel. Imagine, we suppress these feelings all the time because we don't even realize how heavy they are. And you're suppressing it, and your body is holding it. You think you're doing fine. You're going to work, you're going to play, you're going out with friends, you're being social, but then you're coming home at the end of the night, getting into bed, and it all comes crashing onto you. And you're barely hanging on, and you're not sure why. You got to sit with the feelings and the emotions. So You're at home, you're sitting against the wall, on the bed, on the sofa, you're in a quiet place, your phone is turned off, your TV's turned off. As a matter of fact, I don't even want you to have music on with it. I want you to get very centered and focused. And I know for my ADHD folk and my neurodivergent folk, that can be very difficult. You can put on some brown noise, you can put on some ocean sounds in the background. But other than that, the reason I don't want you to put on music is because music carries frequency, and I don't want you to associate this process with that frequency. You want to associate this process with just this process. So you're going to be sitting there, hand on your heart, hand on your solar plexus, your sacral area, wherever you need to put your hand. And you're going, wherever you feel that energy, and you're going to breathe into it. And you're going to allow those emotions to rise. It may make you cry. You may start to feel like you need to scream. You may feel like you need to laugh, but you're going to be getting those emotions out, because if you let it sit in your body is going to store it. And that's where the root of disease or dis-ease comes from. So you got to get it out. When we harbor feelings of unworthiness, when we harbor feelings of not being good enough, when we harbor feelings of deserving to have been hurt, our body doesn't realize that it's just feelings, because now we're storing it as energy. You are not your feelings. Remember, earlier I said you are a spirit being with a soul. That's your battery. That's your source spark. And a body, living in a body. These bodies house us for 70, 80, 90, 100 years. You have to go after the issue from all angles. Hey, guys that are joining. So you go after the issue from all angles because it's attacking you from all angles. You're feeling that heaviness on your shoulder. Some of us are carrying us here. We don't even realize we've got our shoulders up to our ears all day until we lay down and it's like, oh. And you're like, oh, shoot, I didn't even realize I was carrying all that tension. And over time, you get all those knots in your neck and your shoulders and your back, and you're not understanding why. And it's because you've been carrying the tension, the energy there the whole day, the whole week, the all month, all year. So you've been sitting with yourself against this wall on your sofa, in your bed, hand on your heart or on your solar plexus, your sacral area, hand on your root, wherever you feel that energy. And you breathed into it, and you start to allow the emotions to arise. And now you're crying, or you're laughing, or you're shaking, or you're just boiling in rage. What I want you to do is you're going to continue getting that energy out. And then once all of that energy is out for that moment, you're going to speak life into your inner child. You're going to let those emotions run their course. You're going to sit with those emotions and not suppress them. You're not going to judge them. You're going to let them be what they are. This is a practice that we should be doing all the time, every day anyway. You go to work, you have a rough day at work, somebody pissed you off. Sit with that emotion. Feel it. It's okay to be pissed off. It's okay. You are in traffic and somebody cuts you off and you're like, and they give you the finger and you just want to, go off on them. That's fine. Feel that emotion. Just don't let it overtake you. Let it flow through you. Observe it and let it go. You had, I don't know, if somebody can give me an issue that they may be having, and we'll go through the emotions and talk about how to release it. But you have these feelings and these emotions for a reason, and you're really just the observer of them. You allow yourself to feel it, and you allow it to pass through. Once you do that, while you're sitting on the floor against the wall, while you're sitting on your bed, your sofa, and you've allowed these emotions to come up, you're going to go ahead, once they pass, take a few deep breaths, and then go inward. What does that look like? That looks like you envisioning your inner child. That looks like you envisioning the you of the past that was originally traumatized, originally hurt. That looks like you seeing that little girl with those pigtails and those bows. That looks like you seeing that little boy with that football or with the mud on his shirt or dirt on his face. I know not all little boys like to play in the dirt, but that looks like you envisioning yourself at whatever stage you were when it happened. Tears and all. It looks like you, the adult you, that has the authority, the power, and the ability now to grow that inner child up into being loved. That looks like you going towards that child and hugging them, loving them, telling them it's okay. I'm here. We made it. You're protected. Zuli says, when I get mad, I call my sister because she helps me to pass the emotion. That sounds like an amazing sister. I hope she gives you some real good love and tough love. When it comes down to going to somebody, that's another topic, and we'll talk about that. you're going to go to that inner child and you're just going to sit there. And it may look like you sitting like this or giving yourself a hug or touching wherever you're feeling that energy. Because by now, when you've released it, you'll find that it dissipates. It's not as heavy. And you're going to sit with yourself and you're going to say whatever words you needed an adult to say to you at that age. Imagine if you could go to the past, walk up to that child version of you, put your arms around them, and say everything's going to be okay. Imagine if you went to your past self, walked up to them, and said, guess what? You're going to make it. You're going to be able to provide for yourself. You're going to be able to fight back. You're going to be able to protect yourself. And you're going to have children, and you're going to have friends, and you're going to have family who love and accept you for who you are. And it's okay. You are worthy. You are deserving. On that list that you wrote with the feelings and the beliefs, I forgot to say, on the other side, you're going to write what you'd rather feel, what you'd rather have grown up believing, what you'd rather somebody say about you. Instead of feeling sad, you'd rather feel happy. Instead of feeling hurt, you'd rather feel healed. Instead of feeling unworthy, you'd rather feel worthy. Instead of believing that you're not good enough, you'd rather believe that you are perfectly made and perfectly good enough. And you're going to go to that inner child, sitting with yourself, hand on wherever you feel those emotions, and you're going to say, it's okay. You are worthy. You are loved. You are enough. You're so welcome. You're so welcome, Ade, Daja, brother. You're going to allow yourself to feel those emotions, and then you're going to allow yourself to remind that inner child that you are okay, that you are worthy. For people who have children, nieces and nephews, children around them, I encourage you to do that to them frequently, to look at them and say, hey, you know you're worthy, right? You know you're wonderful. You're amazing. You're made in God's image, or you're made in the image of the Most High. Or you're just brilliant. You're intelligent. Feed their spirits and their minds so that as they grow up, they don't grow up with the same traumas that we grew up with. Now, remember, a lot of us are healing generational trauma. A lot of us are actively healing the traumas our parents went through, our grandparents went through, and we may not even know it. You ever hear the old people say stuff like, oh, she reminds me of her Auntie Peaches, or he reminds me of Uncle Fred. They're just alike. Man, you remember Fred had that alcohol problem? You remember Auntie Peaches was addicted to that? Yeah, I hope they don't be. It's because we do carry the memory of the generations in our DNA. I mean, science has proven this time and again, the whole nature versus nurture thing. We carry that and we can heal it. We have authority to heal things that we didn't even experience. And it does travel down the lineage. And it travels up the lineage to your children and your children's children when you allow those traumas to heal. So as you sit there with your inner child, as you sit there reminding that inner child that they are safe now, you're here to protect them. You've grown up. You are well capable. You're going to find that you're not going to feel as all that pain that you were feeling before. It's going to start dissipating. And that wound we were talking about in the beginning, where I said, it's like you go to the doctor, you have this gaping wound in your chest, in your heart, and you go to the doctor and they scoop all the stuff out, they put antibiotics and they clean it out, but it's not yet healed. Well, you're going to find that wound starts to heal. You have to grow up that inner child so the wound does not persist to become infected. Something that's infected has an impediment in it, keeping it from healing. The human body always wants to heal itself. The human mind, the human psyche wants to heal itself. Our souls they stay healed. We're divinely connected to source. So the mind and the body always want to heal themselves. And the only thing we have to do is remove the impediment from healing. We have to be responsible enough to remove whatever it is that is keeping us stuck in that place. Do the work. It's worth it. So you sit on the floor, you sit on the bed, you sit on your sofa, and you sit there with these feelings and emotions, and you felt them, and you've allowed them to rise up, and you've scooped them out, and you've allowed them to start to go ahead and wash away, and you've grown that inner child up, and you said to yourself, you are worthy, you are loved, you are accepted, you are healed, you are whole, I love you. I want you to now imagine and envision that child is growing up from 5 to 6. Imagine how you would look if you grew up with adults loving on you, protecting you, really being there for you. If you grew up with somebody hugging you and telling you, hey, everything's going to be okay. I got you. Don't worry. I'll teach you how to do that. Imagine yourself growing up through the years, 5, 6, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50. Imagine yourself getting all the way up to the place where you are now, knowing what you now know. The subconscious mind doesn't know the difference. The subconscious mind deals in symbols and images. It does not deal in words. When we say words, it creates an image in our mind. And it's like that. If I say the word cat to you right now, you don't just see C-A-T. You see an image of a cat. If I say elephant, you don't see a giraffe. You see an elephant, right? Whatever color it may be, pink, purple, or gray. Zuli says, I have a daughter. I write her love letters on her mirror and she writes me back as well. That is so sweet. I love that. That is beautiful. And she's going to remember that her entire life. She's going to remember that. And that's a tradition she's going to keep on with her future, whether she has children, whether she has a girlfriend or boyfriend. She's going to keep that on through her life because that's encouragement. That is so beautiful. And those are things you can do for yourself. You can write yourself love letters. I do it. I have a little board in my bathroom that says, you are powerful, you are worthy, you are important, you are loved. I write myself love letters. They're very important to me, actually. My mother used to do the same. She used to write me notes, leave them in my backpack and my lunchbox. And they would be Bible verses. They'd be quotes. She would write things like, I love you, you are worthy, and stuff like that. So when you do stuff like that, it creates love, and it creates almost like a like a backpack full of little mementos that she's able to choose from. So Zuli, I like that. So you want to imagine yourself from that age that you got traumatized, growing up, feeling the way you would rather have felt, believing about yourself the way you would have rather believed. Now, the reason you're going to do this more than once, you're going to do it when the feelings hit, and you're going to do it when they don't hit. You're going to set a time for yourself. Do it every day for 30 days. Just give yourself 30 days. You're worth 30 days, aren't you? 30 days is going to come anyway. Give yourself 30 days of doing this exercise, whether you're feeling good or bad. Because what you want to do is you want your subconscious mind to now reprogram. You're going to be recalibrating and reprogramming your subconscious mind because you didn't get this way overnight. You did not, trauma may happen one time, or it may happen compounding throughout life. But that incident was a one-time incident. Anything that happened after that was a different second incident, and so forth and so on. You're not going to do this just one time when you're doing it yourself. You're going to do it continuously. You're going to make this a habit. If you're willing to invest in yourself time, you're going to reap the rewards of time. If you're not willing to invest time in yourself to heal yourself, why do you expect somebody else to come and heal you and save you? What sense does that make? If you're not willing, if I have a business and I'm not willing to put time in for my business, why do I expect somebody else to come through and put time in for my business? Just a question. So if you're not willing to put the time in for yourself, don't sit back and expect other people to just come do it for you. Nobody's coming to save us. We have to save ourselves. I know it's harsh. I get it. But you have the ability to do it. You have the power to do it. You're more powerful than you ever imagined. There's power in your voice. There's power in your actions. There's power in your decisions, the things you do and don't do. So after you grow yourself up, feeling those emotions and knowing those beliefs, you're going to come out of that meditation. You're going to take a few breaths. You're going to sit there with it. And you're going to go about your day. And you're going to do that every day for 30 days, just 30 days. Watch and see if your life doesn't start to change. Watch and see if your beliefs about yourself don't start to change. You'll start putting up boundaries with people. You'll start setting expectations in all of your relationships, whether they're platonic, romantic, or business. You're going to find that you start to see yourself differently, the way that you would rather believe that you are. There is so much power in belief. All that a belief is a feeling that we've continued to feel, a thought that we've continued to think prolonged period of time. So you're going to allow yourself to think these thoughts, these positive, uplifting thoughts for a prolonged period of time. Now, are you going to be positive all the time? Heck no. No. You're not meant to always be sunshine and rainbows and butterflies. That's not a human experience. But one thing that you're not going to do is you're not going to allow yourself to constantly beat you up and beat you down. You're going to lift yourself up. Because if you don't do it, can't wait for everybody else to do it for you forever, right? So when it comes to growing up the inner child, that's the work you're going to do. That's the process you're going to take, because we have the power and the ability to save ourselves. Now, here's another thing. When it comes to things like CPTSD, which is complex PTSD, compounding is when we've experienced trauma throughout our lives. Now, there are a lot of people who have experienced a lot of trauma over and over and over again. I wish it was just a one-off thing. You know, it's a little different than somebody who grew up in a perfectly balanced two-family household, who always had everything met for them, all their needs met, and they never experienced any type of abuse. And then they go maybe off to war. That's a different type of trauma. Those type of PTSDs are dealt with just a little bit differently. When you grew up with the trauma where there was abuse in the household and it was consistent, well, once you start to heal that trauma and you grow your inner child up, now you have the work of rebuilding trust with your intuition. Because a lot of times people who deal with CPTSD, they end up in really crappy relationships. They end up in relationships that are uneven, whether it's with romantic relationships or platonic, even with business. They tend to get taken advantage of a lot, because a lot of times, we do not recognize certain aspects in people and certain signs that people are giving the red flags. And even if we do recognize it, sometimes we don't know how to deal with it. So I'll give you guys an example. Okay. Business example. If you have, let's say you go into business with somebody and you help somebody out. All right. You help them out to do something, and they don't supply you with all of the required accoutrement that you need to get the job done. And they're just like, oh, well, you do it for me, or you go pay for it or buy it. The boundary would be to say, nah, you need to come through and you need to provide this. When you've grown up with continuing compounding trauma where people have abandoned you or abused you or something in that manner, it may be difficult for you to set a boundary. And a lot of times it's difficult to set the boundary because you really just don't know how. Nobody ever taught you to stand up for yourself and to say, I'm not going to take that. Let's say romantic relationship. You get into a romantic relationship and the person puts you down a lot. They talk crap about you, or maybe they get physically violent with you, or physically aggressive. It doesn't even have to go as far as hitting you, but it can go into demeaning you, putting you down, taking your belongings, throwing them out. If you don't set the boundary, then they keep doing it. Well, you may not know that you can even set that boundary because that inner child was never allowed to, especially if you grew up in certain types of organized religions and you were taught never to question authority. In your mind, the person you're dating may be an authority over you. You may be waiting for that person to take control all the time when you are the captain of your life. You are the man. This isn't going to work. Either you start respecting me or I'm gone. And sometimes you don't even need to give them the either or. Sometimes it just needs to be you know what? You crossed the line. You disrespected me. We're done. We're good. Thank you. Have a good day. And walking away. I know that a lot of times people, when we grow up with trauma, when we've grown up with certain types of abuse, what happens is we become afraid of losing people. We become afraid that people are going to walk away. We're afraid of being alone. I like my own company. Don't you like yours? You want people to be around you, but you don't want to be around yourself? Something to think about. Being alone is not a bad thing. Now, being lonely, we all get lonely at times. We all have times where we want to interact with people, and we need to interact with people. But isn't it better to interact with the right people? People who uplift you, who build you up, who lift you up, who love you? Isn't it better to be around and to be uplifted by people who see you, who really see you, as opposed to just settling for people who just tolerate you? My old pastor used to say, go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. I love it. I love it. That's one of my favorite sayings. Go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. In order to rebuild trust in your intuition, it's like building trust with a friend. You have to befriend your intuition, because for so long your intuition may have been tainted or tarnished by somebody. Can we control emotions? We're not supposed to control them. We're not supposed to control emotions. We're supposed to feel them. We're supposed to allow the emotions to come and feel the emotion. Sit with the emotion. Now, are we supposed to use that emotion to blow up on others? That's debatable. I'm under the belief to harm none, do harm to no one, unless someone's trying to harm me. Are you supposed to control it? No, but you are supposed to feel it. Because when you allow that emotion to come, let's say that emotion is anger. Now, I had this conversation last night. The emotion is anger. Sometimes we know that our anger can be really detrimental to somebody's well-being. And so we can take that emotion of anger, that feeling that we're feeling, and we can go sit with it. Sometimes we got to go punch a pillow. Sometimes you got to go to your car and scream. And sometimes you just need to allow that anger to go through you and come out carefully with your words. The reason that I say carefully is because our words carry weight. Is when we have strong emotions and we put them into words, that's like magic. That's like magic. If somebody hurts you and you take that anger, that hurt, and you put it into words towards them, it's like spell casting. It's magic. So control the emotions. I want you to feel the emotion. I see people trying to join the live. I don't know what that means. So if you guys will friend me and DM me or something, or you can go to my IG, I'm Not Your Real Mom, and send me a message. Then the next live I do, I would love it if you join. I just don't know fully the implications of that. So because I think like 5 people have tried to join, but I want you to sit with the emotions and feel them, question them, talk to them, become friends with your emotions. Yo, I'm feeling angry right now. Where are you coming from? Get to the root of it. Where the person just overstepped a boundary. What boundary did they overstep? Oh, they called me out my name. Oh, no, they didn't. And how did that make you feel? It made me feel angry. Why did that make me feel? Granddaddy used to do that. They put me down. They just offended me. Okay. What do you want to do with that? Emotion, what do you want to do? I see you. I hear you. You're valid. Your emotions are very valid. They're there for a reason. But they're friends. They're visitors. You are not your emotions. Remember that. You can't control anything that is not you. The only thing you can control is yourself, your actions. But your emotions, try to control them. All they do is energy. Emotions are energy. All that they do is they go and they sit and wait. They go to your organs, your gallbladder, your liver, your kidneys, your heart, your mind. They go to your organs and they sit there and they fester and they build and they grow. And before long, that's where we get certain types of cancers. Not all, because some are just chemicals, and because of the environment and the stuff that these food companies are putting out there, that's a whole nother story. But some of these things are so preventable, and they're caused because we're harboring that energy. Everything around you is energy, atoms, subatomic atoms, and protons, neutrons, electrons that are constantly moving. And those emotions are no different. They're energy, and they are tangible. Want me to prove it? Let me prove it to you. All right. I got my notes here. I'm going to turn them around. I'm going to write you a letter. I'm going to write you this beautiful letter, and it's going to tell you how much I care about you and love you. And I'm going to mail it to you. I'm going to send it to you. And when you get that letter, you're going to read it. And it's going to make you feel a certain way, because I just transferred my feelings, my energy onto that paper, and I sent it to you. Now you've got something tangible from me to hold. If your niece, nephew, child draws you a picture and says, "Here, I love you. This is for you," do you take it and be like, "Oh, okay," rip it up in front of them and throw it off? No, because you know they just gave you their energy, right? Our emotions are the same. And if we do not feel them and sit with them and talk to them and allow them to pass through us, well, now they're stored in our organs. Now they're stored in our minds. Now they're stored in our body. And those parts were never intended to hold that kind of energy. Our bodies are amazing. It'll hold the energy. It'll hold it for 50 years until it doesn't anymore. Until we start to wear it on our face, until we start to wear it in our bodies in disease and sickness, until we start to wear it in our minds with worry. So yeah, let it pass through you so that you can move on and feel new emotions. Not to mention, when people do things that cause us to feel certain emotions, a lot of times that's people transferring the negativity that they have into us and they want us to carry it. And I personally don't even like carrying my own purse. So why do I want to carry somebody else's negative energy? I mean, I'll send it out and let source transmute it. I don't even want to give it back to them. Some people will be like, return to sender, let them carry it. I don't want them to carry it, to be honest with you, because what's the point of people carrying all this garbage and just dumping it on other people? Because usually they're not going to dump it on a stronger person who's strong enough to handle it. They're going to dump it on somebody that they think is not strong enough to handle this week. And you don't deserve that, right? So we've talked about growing up your inner child. We've talked about rebuilding trust with your intuition like an old friend. We've talked about the emotions and should we, I love that question, by the way. Can we really control emotions? I appreciate that question because I think oftentimes we look at our emotions as being us, we say, we say that I am angry, but you're not angry. You feel angry. You're not sad. You feel sad. You are you. You're not your name that your parents gave you. You're not your job description. You're not your job title. You're not the title that somebody gave you. That's my boyfriend, my wife, my husband. That's not who you are. That's a role that you feel. You're not your emotions. You have emotions. You feel emotions. So feel them. Feel them. It's that simple. I got to make a TikTok on that one. I'm going to remember that. Okay. So the last thing I want to talk about to you guys is, okay, so this hurricane gave me a lot of opportunity to sit with myself, really sit with myself, and just kind of deal with certain thoughts that I was having. When you take a break, and I encourage people to take a social media break. I mean, we're always plugged in. Take it at least once a month for a couple of days where you're just really sitting with yourself. We're a society that's very overstimulated. Sitting in the hurricane and the power went out, the rain and winds are going outside. It reminded me of being a little girl. I have my books there. I didn't pick it up though. I just sat with myself and I remember sitting in the dark and I'm listening to the wind howl and the rain and the trees are getting knocked down outside. And I hear the wind howl in such a way that it sounded alive. It was such a beautiful experience because I hadn't really experienced it since 2017 when I think it was Irma that was here in Florida. And I remember being in the house with my friends and we were playing games, card games and stuff. But then we went to our own separate rooms and we're just sitting there. And it was such a serene feeling, just this feeling of peace where you get a chance to sit with yourself. And now you've got to listen to your thoughts. Now, my thoughts were pretty kind for the most part, but there were a couple of thoughts that I had. And one of them was about how I process things. I'm the type of person that needs a sounding board. So I tend to either write it in my journal or I talk to friends. And I want to encourage you, when you find people to talk to, make sure the people that you're talking to are spiritually and emotionally mature, because you don't want to take counsel from people who need counsel, who need to improve their level of wisdom. You want to take counsel from people that you respect. Two, when you're talking to people, I have this theory or this notion of don't pass negative downward. So people who may be much younger than you, who have not had much life experience, people who in their own lives, they're dissatisfied and they're always griping and negative. I have this belief, be very careful sharing your heart and the things that you're experiencing and going through with those type of people. But I want to also say, be very aware that not everybody needs to know all of your backstory and not everybody needs to be a sounding board. Now, sometimes you just need to get it out. That's when I'm a strong believer in journaling. If you're a spiritual person, talking to your ancestors, talking to an adult that you trust, or maybe even a parent if you have that kind of relationship with them, an aunt or an uncle. But if you don't have any of that and you have health insurance, please talk to a therapist. That's what we're here for. We are trained to be able to listen, and not just listen to talk, but we're trained to be able to listen to hear. You want to make sure that you're talking to somebody who is able to listen to hear. If you have a friend that you always go to and every time you talk to them, they immediately turn it into about them and their experience, it doesn't mean that they don't love you or care about you. That's just where they're at. They're not trained. Most people don't know how to communicate. Most of us were never taught the most important skill that we need in life, and that's how to communicate, when to communicate, with whom to communicate. And there's different type of communication styles. So if you're going through a level of trauma and you have a friend that you normally talk to, first of all, I encourage you to ask them, can they handle it? Do they have space before you start to open up? Hey, Ruby, I'm just making up a name here. Ruby, I need to talk about something. You have space to hold it? It's a little heavy. I need your input, your insight, but I really need to get it out. I have a couple of friends where I literally have only 3 people that I talk to about things. And one of them I can talk to for like 9.5 hours. And we never run out of stuff to talk about. And I enjoy his insight back and forth because he has a very unique insight. I have one of my friends who lives down in Miami, and she's much older, and her insight is amazing, her perspective, because she approaches things from a perspective of power and not disempowerment. So I like talking to people like that. So when it comes to being able to vent or tell people something, one, be careful before you lay things on people, because sometimes you don't know where they're at. You don't know where their mind is. You don't know if they're going through. So you have that respect. 2, make sure that they are emotionally, mentally, and spiritually mature so that they can handle what you're telling them. If you make sure that they are mature enough to handle what you're telling them, then you're going to be able to rest assured that you can trust that they're not going to run and tell your business to other people. You can rest assured and trust that they're not going to judge you negatively, because that can re-traumatize you. That leads me into the last thing. When you're healing trauma, you go to a therapist, you go to a hypnotherapist, you do the acupuncture, you do the breath work, you do the stretches, you get the trauma out your body, but you end up re-traumatizing yourself because you haven't learned to trust your intuition. You haven't built up trust enough to know that that person over there, Bobo over there, is not somebody you can trust. So when you start to heal, you're going to find that certain people fall off, and that's okay. It's not personal, it's spiritual. That's fine. Let them fall off. And I know it hurts, but let it go. But when those people start to fall off, you'll find the universe sends other people in. Now, that's where your intuition comes in, because now your trauma brain is so used to being hurt. You have defenses up to protect yourself. You've built up new parts of yourself that weren't traumatized as a child. They were traumatized in your 20s from your friendships. You have to be aware of who you're using as a sounding board, who you're trusting with your time and your energy, because if those people are not mature, then they can end up thinking negative about you, causing you to think negative about yourself. And that ends up re-traumatizing you. And we want to stay away from that, because it's one thing to heal the trauma from childhood when you just didn't know better. It's another thing to have to heal trauma from adulthood when you feel like you should have known better. You may not have known better. You feel like you should. Now you're dealing with shame. Now you're dealing with guilt. Now you're dealing with the, I should have known. Well, how could you? People play roles and they put on masks. You can't always read people's minds. You really can't read them at all, Some people are great projectors. They're loud thinkers. But for the most part, you can't always read people's intentions. So the reason I want you to rebuild trust with yourself, the reason that I want you to start to learn how to listen to your intuition, is because you need to be able to determine and differentiate whose spirit is what, especially when you've already been through trauma. especially when you're in the process of healing that trauma. Because once you do the work to be re-traumatized over and over, it wears you down, especially mentally, but it wears all of you down. It's draining. You're not able to focus on what you're trying to do because you're constantly on the lookout for arrows and shots and bullets from other people. You're constantly on the lookout, trying to figure out who's real, who's not, who's trying to hurt you, who's not. The key is to rebuild that trust with your intuition so that it's instantaneous. But that's a whole nother live. And I will definitely do a TikTok, and I'm gonna write a note so I don't forget. But I want you guys to understand. It's so important that you really understand. You are and have always been worthy. You are and have always been deserving of love. Every last one of you, I don't care. You are and you always will be, and you are and you always have been beautiful. You are love. You are love incarnate. And I know that sometimes it seems like we are not receiving the type of love that we desire. We do have to give it to ourselves. That way we know what it looks like. That way we know we can recognize what's not love when love is not being served. When you really give it to yourself, you take care of yourself, you eat well, you give yourself a schedule. What do we do with children? We teach them discipline. Joya says, how do you get over trauma of a situation that's ongoing and will never change? You get out of the situation. I want you to imagine it like this. You have a pot of water on the stove boiling, right? You stick your hand in that boiling water and leave it there, you're going to blister. You stick your hand in the boiling water and you leave it there, you're going to lose that hand eventually. You stick your hand in boiling water and you take it out. You've learned that it's hot. You learned the lesson you need to know. You're not going to stick your hand in that boiling water anymore. Boiling water is the trauma, is the person. The blisters is the trauma that it causes. The longer you stay in a traumatic situation, it doesn't get better. Because now, whatever traumatic situation that you're in is learning that that's what you'll take. And the reason that the reason that you're doing that is because you want to get a different perspective. You said, my son is 12 and I hold a lot of anger and depression because his dad refuses to be in his life. You can't force somebody to be in someone's life, but here's the thing. You holding that anger and that depression, that's not serving your son. It's really going to be up to you to let your son know that he is worthy, that his father's actions are not his fault. A lot of times kids who grow up without a parent will take that on and feel like they did something wrong. Even if you tell them that they haven't done anything wrong, sometimes the thought will come, well, if only I'd been better, if only I'd been this, if only I'd been that. No, let him know, baby, it's not your fault. But him seeing you have that anger and that depression, now will tell you, a parent who deals with depression that goes untreated, their children will, it's like magic, it's like Wi-Fi, So it says my connection is going in and out. I don't know. I hope you guys can hear me. We're still getting some internet stuff fixed down here in Florida, so the Wi-Fi may be spotty. But if you're going through depression, you help and heal you, your son will be perfectly fine. Because now you'll be able to give him and show him the tools that he needs in order for him to be successful and to be what he needs to be as he grows up, right? Now let's deal with your son's father, in the sense that you can't control him. And I'm going to say this may be controversial. If he's not the type of person that is so happy to have a child and takes pride in his child, you may not want your son to have any interaction with him, because any interaction with him is probably going to be negative. And that goes for whether it's a son or our daughter. That goes for whether it's a mother or a father. I don't care. If you have somebody, you had a child with somebody and she's out there in the streets partying, or she's very negative, or she's alcoholic or whatever, you may not want your child to have too much interaction with that person, because that child is a blank slate that's quickly getting filled up, and they're going to be learning these attributes and learning these behaviors from that person. So you have to protect your child because you're in a place to protect your child. Just like you have to ask yourself, why am I holding on to the anger and depression from this? Yes, it is hard being a single mother. It is. Yes, it is difficult being a parent without all the support that you need. Yes, it's difficult being a woman or a man who doesn't have somebody that they can depend on when things get tough. Yeah, it is. You're well capable, but now this is where you want to build community. You want to have those strong friendships, sisterhoods, brotherhoods, people that you can talk to, people that you're able to say, hey, I have a 12-year-old son. Even with this, especially these days, you want to be careful. You get your son involved in things that he's interested in, whether it's music or sports, whether it's music production, or whether it could be anything, it could be theater. It doesn't, whatever he loves to do, you get him involved in it, and you get him around strong, loving people who will help to protect him and to protect you. And you get around those people and you create community. But you especially sit with your son and you have honest, open conversations with him from a place of love, not a place of hurt. And be very careful the things you say to your children about their parents. Even if a father is a deadbeat dad, even if a mother is a deadbeat mom, be very careful the things you say to your children about their other parent. Because it's not about the other parent. That child is going to hear those attributes. And they're going to think that it's them, that they carry those attributes. If you say to your child, you just like your deadbeat daddy, you're just like you ain't no good father, they're going to hear that. And they're going to, or you could even say, oh, I can't stand your daddy, he this. Well, your child is a part, that person is a part of your child. They share DNA. And your children will believe what you say about them. So be very aware of that. You said that's true. A few times he did come around. He was not a good influence and acted like he was a brother because he's immature. And that's a person that probably, I would put money on it, has trauma from his own childhood. Unfortunately, we live in a society where men are not allowed to express themselves fully the same way women are. It's not right. It is not right. And it's not, women haven't done it to men. Patriarchy has done it to men. Because we have these rules throughout the world in society, but especially here in the West, where if you're a man, the main emotions you're allowed to show are happiness, especially when your team is winning, your boys are doing good, anger, somebody piss you off. Yeah, you can be angry, throw them around. They're not allowed to show sadness. They can show, sexual attraction, but they're not allowed to show the deep feelings of hurt. So they don't know how to process it. So when they don't know how to process that, especially from a young age, they stay stuck. If your son's father was acting like a brother, more than likely he is stuck somewhere in his childhood in trauma, and he needs therapy so that he can grow up that inner child. But in order to even get there, he'd have to first even know that he's dealing with that. A lot of times people don't know. It's like, I'm a Doctor Who fan. There's an episode where she has this thing stuck to her back and she can't see it, but she can feel it. Well, spiritually, this thing is draining her life force, right? Spiritually, sometimes people have these attachments and it's not their fault. You'd be surprised. I talked about this years ago on my YouTube channel, but I took it down because I was kind of uncomfortable. Majority of men I know have been sexually abused in some way, form, or fashion, and it was passed off as being a good thing. A babysitter, a teacher, somebody from their church that was older, a family member, and sometimes even a prostitute. And the men, they were still children, and they carry this trauma throughout their life, and it keeps them stuck. And unfortunately, it's something that's not talked about. And I'm not making excuses for your son's father, but sometimes the reason I bring that up is because when you've been dealing with trauma from that young an age, you don't know how to be responsible. You have to kind of be, it takes a lot to learn how to be a father and not treat your child like they're just a brother and you don't want nothing to do with them. That's a person who is mentally stuck at a very young age. And we have to be aware when anybody that we're intimate with is stuck at those younger ages, because they're not going to be able to show up for us or any children we have together the way that we need them to, or the way that the child needs them to. So I bring up the trauma portion because I want you to be aware, because you're aware, you're very self-aware, obviously, if you know that you've been dealing with depression, if you know that you're dealing with the anger, if you're aware that it's there, that's the first step, admitting that something is there. And you said he treated him like a bother or didn't want to be bothered. I see what you mean. So he's treating him like a bother because in his mind he's not emotionally mature enough to recognize that this is his child and that he now has a duty to perform. It's like it's almost like you're hiring somebody for a certain position and they're not quite qualified to fill that position. Does that make sense? Because when traumas happen in our lives, unfortunately, if we don't heal from that trauma and it keeps us stuck in the past, we can't rise up where we want to go because there's something pulling us back down. You have to recognize that it's there. And if he doesn't recognize that it's there, there's nothing you can do, my dear, except love your son and love yourself. That's it. Be very aware of the words you speak to your children. Be very aware of the words that you speak to yourself, to your inner child. And I'll tell you too, you deserve to have a partner who loves you. You deserve to have a partner who loves your son. And your son deserves to have a mother who loves herself and who loves him. You heal you, everything else falls into place. But yeah, I misread it as brother because I was reading it fast. I have a small screen, but I see where you said bothered, and it's yeah, he's stuck. You can't do anything for him in that sense, but you can do something for you. So we have Joy ate fluffin. Did I say that right? Joy, thank you so much. And for everybody that joined my live, I appreciate you guys very much. I appreciate you for healing. Anything that you learn from my lives, from my TikToks, please share, because the goal for me is to just have a ripple effect. If I can help one person to get to where they need to be to heal themselves, then they're going to go help 2 people. Then those 2 people are going to go help 3, 4 people, and it's going to grow incrementally. This world needs healing. This world needs healing. And we are in a very unique time and place where we're now able to disseminate information so that people, if they're willing to do the work, the work is willing to do what it needs to do. So with that said, stay tuned. Give me a follow. Give me a share. I love you guys. I hope you have a beautiful Saturday and continue doing the work. Remember, you are worthy. You are loved. You are deserving of love, and you're deserving of all good things. Show up for yourself every day. You got this.